On July 15, 2020, this tweet was posted on Elon Musk's account. "Send me $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, and I will return it to you for 2,000. This offer is valid for 30 minutes only." And below the tweet, there was the Bitcoin wallet number. The tweet looks like a scam, but it was posted on Elon Musk's official and verified account. The same tweet was posted on other popular accounts like Apple, Uber, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Kanye West, and other big accounts that have millions of followers. Later, when it was discovered that this was the largest hacking operation in Twitter history, the company stopped the tweeting feature for all the well-known verified accounts until they discovered what exactly was happening. What wasn't expected was that the one responsible for the hack was actually a 17-year-old teenager. When they looked into his past, they discovered that he was a swindler and an old hacker who had been working in the field since he was 13 years old and stole money and Bitcoin worth millions of dollars. He was also involved in drug dealing and murder crimes. How did a teenager manage to do all of this? And how did he manage to hack one of the greatest platforms? Keep watching to figure it out. Today's story is about a teenager named Graham Ivan Clark, who used to live in Tampa, Florida. He used to study at a school named Gaither High School. At that time, Graham used to attract the attention of his colleagues in school because of his rich appearance. He used to put on clothes, watches, and accessories that were worth thousands of dollars. So where does a teenager like him get all this money? And if he belonged to a rich family, why did he study at a public school? The fortune that appeared on him prompted many of his colleagues to try getting closer to him and becoming his friends, which he took advantage of and asked them to do his homework, help him cheat in exams, and things like that. In return, he used to invite them for dinner and buy them what they needed. It was a win-win relationship. And no one used to ask, where does he get the money from? And he also doesn't like to talk about this. Even if someone tries to talk about it, he will immediately change the subject. Many of those around him knew that his family's situation was normal or less than average. So where could a teenager get all this money from? This had started when he was 13 when his parents got divorced and his father left them and moved somewhere else. Graham lived with his mother, who barely managed to provide for him. She was always busy at work, so he resorted to the world of the web and gaming and started doing what he wanted uncontrollably. Graham used to spend a lot of time on Minecraft. As you know, Minecraft is a game with many servers. Each group of people can make their own server, play with each other, and enjoy all the things they can do inside the game, like building houses, gathering materials, and many other things. In parallel, they can get to know each other and make friends. Just like any other place in the world, there is a high possibility of meeting bad people who try to take advantage of and steal from others. In Minecraft, Graham entered the world of fraud. On the web, Graham went by the name Open. He had an account on Twitter and a YouTube channel with the same name. He had followers that loved him, especially because he used to pretend to be a kind guy in his videos. Using his seemingly cute personality, Graham would lure his followers and set them up, sell them things in the game. And after transferring money, he wouldn't provide the buyer with what he bought. He also used to sell capes for Minecraft characters that were worth hundreds of dollars, and he used to vanish immediately after receiving the money, taking advantage of his followers' trust. Graham used to get a lot of money out of this scam in his teens.
Oh really, I don't care, because you're like 12.
I'm like 12, but I make more money than you.
Yeah, obviously.
You don't think you want me to show you my PayPal? You think I'm kidding?
It's
I
like
made
1K
5K in the past month off Minecraft.
Graham used to proudly talk about what he was doing, to the point that his bad reputation began to spread among his followers and community. Some YouTubers started uploading videos to warn people about him. For example, this YouTuber uploaded a video in which he exposed Open, saying that he is a scammer, and he mentioned stories of the followers that were scammed by Open. Because of this YouTuber's video and many other videos, Graham got banned from many Minecraft servers, But Open would take his revenge on this YouTuber.
So Open ended up getting banned off of like all these servers after I showed the proof in my videos of how he was scamming. And then that is when I ended up getting hacked.
Graham hacked the YouTuber. He hacked his email, his YouTube channel, and all his accounts. We don't know if Graham hacked the YouTuber on his own or hired a hacker, but most likely he hired a hacker due to the fact that Graham wasn't experienced enough at that time in hacking, but he had money from scam operations. Graham took his revenge on that YouTuber and hacked all his accounts. He even used them to scam his followers. By impersonating him on social media, he literally smeared his reputation. Graham not only scammed his followers or Minecraft users, he also scammed designers, video editors, and programmers. He hired them, but after getting the work he hired them for, he didn't pay them. In short, the kid lived the life of a scammer since his teenage years. This was only the beginning. His experience in the virtual world would expand gradually to reach the real world, and he began to learn more effective ways of fraud and scam. His real beginnings in the hacking world were on forums and a website named OG Users. Keep this name in mind. This website or forum was like a market in which people sell usernames for different websites. For instance, if someone is looking for a special name to use on Twitter, he can find it there. Although this website promoted itself as a legal place, all the people who offered usernames for sale on it were actually hackers. They hacked the accounts and sold them. Usernames on the website cost thousands of dollars. Graham entered the website and began selling usernames. At that time, Graham moved from being the scammer to being the hacker. The most common method he uses in hacking accounts is a method called SIM swap, which briefly means that the hacker takes over the SIM of his target. And as it is known, most accounts are linked to a phone number as a way to secure the account, as the user can only access his account after entering the confirmation number that the user receives on a message. This is called two-step verification. The hacker somehow reaches out to the telecom company, impersonates his target, and has access to the number, and the target wouldn't be able to use it anymore. This way, the hacker takes over the number and becomes the owner. Some of you may wonder, is it that simple? You call the telecom company, and it gives you the number of someone else. Indeed, no. It's not that simple. The process is way too complicated, but I gave you what it looks like briefly. When the hacker takes over the number, he is then able to access all his target's accounts, including email, bank accounts, and even his Bitcoin wallets. So how did the teenager, Graham, manage to get someone else's number? This can happen in different ways. To illustrate, the hacker can impersonate another telecom company employee and deceive a real employee. For example, he can call another branch of a telecom company and pretend to be an employee from another branch of the same company. The hacker introduces himself to the employee and tells him that he got a report from him about a technical issue and gives him the number of the report to seem more credible. Of course, everything is fake. The employee will then tell him that they didn't report anything. Afterwards, the hacker gives him a link to a website that appears just like the real company website and asks him to log in with his own company account to check the report. As soon as the employee entered his username and password, he got a page that seemed like a real one, in which it was written that the problem was solved. The hacker, on the other side, thanks him and tells him that everything is fine now, and the employee hangs up without realizing that the hacker took over his accounts, and he can then change the number of his target to his SIM from the company system itself. Afterwards, the target will figure out that his SIM card was blocked. He can no longer access his accounts. All the passwords were changed, and he won't be able to reset them because he has lost his phone number too. This is only one of several methods used by hackers. If it didn't work, they tried with another employee or another company branch. This is literally social hacking more than technical hacking. The hacker tries to deceive people more than trying to find software loopholes. At first, Graham used this trick to get Twitter accounts with special names and sell them on OG Users. He was only aiming at taking over Twitter accounts, but he would soon realize that if he could get someone else's phone number, he would access his email. And if he managed to have access to his email, it meant he would gain access to his bank account. The problem was that it's not easy to transfer money from the bank untraceably. However, there is another kind of money that cannot be tracked, which is cryptocurrency. The real treasure is people who have huge amounts of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. From that time, Graham began to target that kind of person. In fact, he wasn't the only one. There were and are still many attacks of this kind, in which the hacker somehow gets someone's phone number, enters his Bitcoin wallet, and steals all his money. The wallet owner can do nothing about it because no one can track Bitcoin transactions. For this reason, we began to hear a lot about thefts of that kind that were worth millions, figures that even bank robbers couldn't get. It would be easier if the thief could access a Bitcoin wallet. Graham made his way when he was 15 years old. He first began to sell usernames on OG Users, and thanks to this website, he got to know many hackers who mastered this trick and started learning from them. They even formed a small community. Most of them were bragging about their fortune by posting all the things they bought on social media. Luxury cars, expensive watches, clothes, and shoes worth thousands of dollars. In the beginning, Graham used to earn thousands of dollars out of this job. Then he began making hundreds of thousands, and little by little, he started making millions. So he started choosing his words carefully. He used to go on Twitter, look for cryptocurrency platforms accounts, and look for his targets among the followers, someone who appeared to have a huge fortune in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. Most of those people brag about their fortune on social media, and they use their real personal information, which makes them easy targets for hackers. After identifying a potential target, Graham performs an operation on him called doxing, which is the act of revealing identifying information about someone online, such as their real name, home address, workplace, phone number, email, and other personal information. They got all this information from websites that sell personal information that the user submits to several websites. This process does not require experience. Many ordinary people can exploit it and usually use it to harass, such as when they report someone and the police break into his house, even though he has not done anything. However, this wasn't Graham's goal. He used this information to perform the card switching operation that we mentioned before. He calls the telecommunications company, somehow convinces them that he is the owner of the SIM card, and then takes it over. This man, named Greg Bennett, was one of Graham's victims. He was an investor with investments in different domains, among them Bitcoin. On April 15, 2019, Greg was working in his office, and his phone was on his desk. He was holding his phone when suddenly the network signal disappeared. He was surprised. His office was in a modern urban area with excellent permanent network coverage. How could it suddenly be cut off? He then tried to log into his emails, but he couldn't access them. He entered the password several times, and each time the password was wrong. Shortly, his phone was switched off. He was terrified when he tried to check his Bitcoin accounts. He used to keep his Bitcoin on 3 different platforms, but none of the accounts gave him access. At that time, he realized that he was hacked, and the worst part is that he could do nothing about it. Afterwards, he remembered that he has an app that directly takes all the data from the Bitcoin accounts and gathers it in one place, so he could see the transactions made in his account through that application. He opened the app and saw Bitcoin transactions from his account to another account. A hacker was actually transferring the Bitcoin to his own account.
Imagine you lost your calendar, you lost your contacts, you lost all your email history, you lost all your kids' photos, all your videos you've ever taken. Imagine you've kind of lost all your life up to today. And that's what it felt like.
It would be discovered later on that Graham was the one who hacked Greg's accounts and stole his Bitcoin, which was worth $1 million all at once. This wasn't all the amount in Greg's accounts. Graham withdrew as much as possible because these platforms set a daily maximum that can be transferred from any account. On the same day, Greg went to the telecom company and managed to recover his phone number, which he used to freeze all his Bitcoin accounts immediately. Of course, Greg will not be able to recover the amounts that Graham withdrew because he transferred them to other accounts. As mentioned previously, Bitcoin transfers are untraceable. However, Graham was a bit greedy. He wanted to take the remaining Bitcoin in Greg's wallet that he couldn't get because of the daily withdrawal limits. Graham got back one of Greg's emails and reached out to him through the same email. He sent him a threatening message in which he wrote, "If you want to recover all your accounts and to avoid any kind of harassment, transfer 50 Bitcoins for us." At that time, 50 Bitcoins were worth $250,000. They even threatened him with his friends and family. And if he wants this to be resolved smoothly, he should give them the rest of his Bitcoin. What impudence! They stole $1 million from him and still want more. The funny thing is that Greg's email was used by the hackers to communicate with each other. Apparently, Graham carried out this operation with 2 other hackers, and as usual, he betrayed them and didn't give them their share of the loot. They were unable to reach out to him. Therefore, the hackers were forced to contact him via Greg's email. In one of the emails, they wrote, "You either give us our share, which is 66%, or you go to jail." They threatened to expose him and report him to the police. This wasn't strange to Graham, who has scammed people since he was a child playing Minecraft. However, this time he fools bad people like him, which puts him in bigger danger. Those people held grudges against him, and sometimes they tried to harm him. This is the testimony of one of Graham's friends and acquaintances who were with him at the time, whose identities have not been revealed, but who were very close to Graham.
They got his family's personal info. They were just constantly harassing him. Someone sent people to Graham's house to scare him or even rob him at one point.
Well, they were planning his robbery. They wanted to have him tortured and a lot of dark things done to him.
Graham not only entered the world of fraud and hacking, but also entered the world of drugs. He was trading in weed and some narcotic pills that he was also taking. He also made some bad acquaintances in the world of drugs. One day, in late 2019, Graham was involved in a shooting incident that ended with one of his friends' murder. Actually, what happened is that Graham and 2 of his friends, who were his age, went to the house of a drug dealer carrying a gun. The reason for the visit was not specified, but apparently there was a conflict between them about a debt, money, or something like that. Graham stayed in the car, and his 2 friends broke into the house of the drug dealer, who had a gun too. As soon as he saw the 2 of Graham's friends in his house, he shot them. One of them died immediately, and the other was severely injured. As for Graham, he left the area with the car straight away after hearing the sound of gunfire. The police then arrived and started investigating the incident. They questioned the guy who was injured and told them about Graham. The police brought Graham for questioning, and he admitted that he was really with them, but he stayed in the car and had no idea what they were intending to do. All he knew was that his friends asked him to drop them off at that house, and when he heard the gunfire, he got scared and escaped. He completely denied his involvement in the incident. The investigators saw that there was a contradiction between what Graham was saying and the evidence they had, but in the end, all they could prove was that he was in the car at the time of the incident, and that was not enough to be convicted. After the incident, the director of Graham's high school stated that the students involved in the incident would no longer be allowed to enter the school. This was the end of Graham's journey in school. He then left his mother's house and bought his own apartment. However, the authorities kept an eye on him, and their investigations about him continued. What made things even worse was that he was one of those teenagers who brag about their money on social media. Hackers and scammers were competing with each other to see who was wealthier. They bragged about their cars, watches, travels, and even their parties. So the authorities were pursuing them. For example, this man, who named himself Xavier, stole almost $7,500,000. By using the SIM swap method we mentioned before, the same method that Graham used in hacking, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison when he was 21 years old. When the investigators investigated Graham, they knew something was unclear, So the prosecutor's office took over the investigation, and after they had enough evidence against him, they issued a search warrant for his house and actually broke into it and arrested him. The detectives managed to confiscate 400 bitcoins, which were worth, at that time, almost $4 million. Graham was earning much more money than was expected from hacking. They confiscated $4 million, but in fact, while investigating him, they thought he had only stolen $1 million. That's the amount they were sure of. The detectives conclude that the other $3 million must have been stolen too, but they were unable to prove it because, as mentioned before, Bitcoin transfers cannot be tracked. The case remained complicated and lasted for 8 months. Eventually, the prosecutor's office made a deal with Graham. They offered to hand over $1 million of the money they confiscated, and they would give him back the remaining $3 million, and he wouldn't be prosecuted. Graham accepted the deal immediately and got away with $3 million. Everyone knew that it was stolen. The reason for the case's complexity was that Graham was a minor. He was under 18 years old. Hacking and scamming are federal crimes. Under U.S. law, minors are not prosecuted for federal crimes.
The law may need to be changed to allow the federal system to catch up with the reality that you have younger kids getting involved in online scams, crypto scams that really merit more serious prosecution and punishment, which federal law doesn't currently allow.
There were many problems and obstacles that prevented suing a minor, and this is what allowed Graham to not be imprisoned in the end with $3 million. Do you expect that after all this, Graham will repent and stop hacking and scamming because he was close to being imprisoned? Of course not. On the contrary, as long as he was still a minor and wouldn't be prosecuted, Graham thought about doing more and bigger crimes. The only problem he had was that he was 17 years old and only had 8 months left to become an adult. He thought that he should exploit them as much as possible to commit crimes greater than previous ones before getting 18 years old, and this way he wouldn't be prosecuted. What happened on July 15, 2020 was literally insane. Graham carried out the biggest hacking operation in internet history. He did not hack any normal website, but rather Twitter, one of the largest social media platforms in the world.
Breaking news tonight on what appears to be a major security breach at Twitter.
And seemed to target high-profile users with millions of followers.
Just breaking, Twitter says it's investigating the apparent hacking of many high-profile users.
All of a sudden, tweets were posted one after the other. Tweets from the biggest accounts on Twitter, 130 accounts with millions of followers. Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Apple, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Floyd Mayweather, and many others. All these accounts posted a tweet. Its content, in short, was that the account owner decided to give his money back to his followers. Whoever sent a Bitcoin, he would double the amount. The offer is available for 30 minutes, and at the end of the tweet, it was mentioned the wallet address where followers could send Bitcoins. As soon as you read the tweet, you will immediately know that it's a scam. But the problem is that it was posted on accounts that belong to well-known people and companies, and all the accounts are verified. This only lasted for a few minutes, and the Twitter administration immediately began to prevent high-profile users with verified accounts from tweeting until it was known what exactly was happening. There was a man named Hazy Bawan who runs a security technical company that specializes in protecting people from hacker attacks, especially SIM swap attacks that we mentioned before. So there was communication between him and some hackers. One of them sent him this message: "Twitter will be fun today." Hasib asked for clarification, and the hacker told him that there was a community that managed to take over any Twitter account. The hacker belonged to the OG users community, the website where social media accounts are offered for sale. Hasib asked him where he got this from, and the hacker sent him a post that was published on the forum in which it was written, "Buy any Twitter account for only $2,000 to $3,000, and you will get the account password." This was posted on the forum by someone whose name is Chewan. Hasib tweeted a screenshot of the post to warn people that this is the source of hacking. 10 minutes after the tweet, Hayseed got this message in private. "Can you please remove your tweet? I don't want people to think I'm the bad guy here." Hayseed asked who he was, and he replied, "I'm Chewon, the one who posted accounts for sale." Chewon was trying to convince Hayseed that it had nothing to do with the hacking operation, and that it was just an intermediary, and he didn't want to be involved in this crime. Hayseed gave him a journalist's phone number and told him that he had to tell the journalist the whole story if he wanted to clear his name. Otherwise, he would be arrested sooner or later. Chewon felt like he had no other option than to contact the journalist. He then reached out to the journalist and told him the whole story. He even revealed his real identity to him. He said that he is a young boy who is 19 years old. His name is Mason, and he lives in England. The boy was extremely stressed when talking to the journalist. Mason told the journalist that he had nothing to do with the hacks and was just selling accounts. The journalist asked him where he got those accounts from, and Mason replied that someone named Kirk reached out to him on Discord. Kirk is one of Twitter's employees, and he is the one who provided Mason with the accounts. The journalist was surprised and asked him in astonishment, "A Twitter employee?" Mason said that he actually didn't ask him, but he just assumed that whoever has access to all these accounts, if he is not a Twitter employee, no one would be able to hack all these accounts at once. Mason said that Kirk reached out to him and asked if he could help sell some accounts. Mason didn't really believe that this guy could have access to any Twitter account. Kirk, in an attempt to assure Mason, asked him to give him any account username he wanted, and he would give it to him. Mason demanded the name anxiously. Such a name is hard to find. However, a few seconds later, Kirk gave Mason the account with the password. Mason logged in and realized that this man was really capable of doing what he claimed to do. Mason accepted to help sell the accounts and posted what we saw before on OG users. At that time, Mason was probably not aware of what he got involved in, but he certainly realized that the game was bigger than he thought after seeing all the big accounts on Twitter post that tweet. The question now is, who is Kirk? Of course, we all know the answer, but at that time, how could they find out his identity, and how was he able to carry out such a large hacking operation? A few days after Graham was released by the authorities, the deal was made, and he came out with $3 million. Graham and another boy who was 2 years younger than him began their plan to carry out this operation. That boy was much more skilled at hacking than Graham. The boy's identity and name weren't revealed because he is still a minor to this day. So Graham worked with that little boy to carry out the Twitter hacking operation. It was 2020. We all know what the world witnessed that year: a pandemic. And as a precaution, many large companies adopted the remote work system. Twitter, like other large companies, made their employees work at home. All Twitter employees had to log into their accounts and the company system from their personal devices at home. Graham and his friend checked the employees' accounts and made a list of each employee so they could know his identity. Then, using the data they gathered, especially their phone numbers, they began to call the employees and pretend to be technical employees on Twitter, and there was a problem to be solved in the account of the employee they were calling. The two boys seemed confident and convincing. Eventually, they asked the employee to enter a fake page, but it appeared just like the real website of the company. The employee enters the page and submits his username and password without realizing that he is actually submitting them to the hackers. Graham and his friend take the login information, enter the employee account, and see what powers he has. Not all Twitter employees have the same powers. The powers of entering any account and changing the email or password are high powers that are given to particular employees. Graham and his friend kept logging into Twitter employees' accounts one after the other, looking for an employee with the power to change passwords and emails. The more accounts they logged in, the more powers they found, until they reached the account of one of Twitter's managers. This man has the power to access any account and change its password and email. They had finally found the tool that would allow them to take over any Twitter account. What was insane is that the operation wasn't led by another country or a group of professional hackers. It was carried out by 2 teenagers. Although the operation was genius, the material benefit of the operation was limited in vision. All the boys cared about was getting unique account names to sell, and then the Bitcoin scamming operation, while they could have benefited much more financially. Using the large companies' accounts that were at their disposal, they could have manipulated the world economy. For instance, they could have tweeted that most of Apple's managers had resigned. The company's stocks would fall immediately, and the 2 boys would make millions if they shorted the stocks. Moreover, they had access to celebrities' conversations. They could have revealed their secrets, bought them, or blackmailed them. The platform was literally theirs. They could have done serious things economically and politically, but luckily they were still teenagers. This wouldn't last long. 2 weeks after the hack, exactly on July 31, 2020, the FBI arrested Graham and his friend. The case details weren't revealed to this day, and we still don't know how the FBI managed to arrest them. The case's details, where a minor is involved, are not revealed to protect the teenager. However, Graham and his friend most likely left a lead behind: a phone number, email, IP address, or maybe someone else reported them. A few days after Graham's arrest, a session was held between his lawyer, the judge, and a group of other secondary lawyers specializing in such cases. An initial meeting session in which they determined the details of the case. The session was held online on Zoom due to the quarantine. A group of Graham's friends that were with him on that forum went by the names of media outlets, newspapers, and TV channels and entered the call as journalists. And then they started making fun of the judge and playing songs.
So again,
Hello, Your Honor. Can you hear
smoking
me?
on that Remy pack.
please
Can you hear me, Your Honor?
inquiries through Mike Moore, our
Yo, Your Honor.
Sorry, I'm removing people as quickly as I can.
This shows us exactly what kind of people Graham was surrounded by. Careless teenagers who consider life a game. Graham will have a harsh trial, and the prosecution intends to try him as an adult because he has only a few months left and is 18 years old. The prosecution filed 30 felonies against him in court, and he would have faced a sentence of up to 210 years. Initially, Graham pleaded not guilty to the charges, but after 7 months of ongoing trial hearings, he accepted a deal they call a plea deal. The main condition of this deal is that he plead guilty, and he would be tried as a minor in return, despite their initial intention to try him as an adult. In Florida, there is a program named Young Youth Offenders. In this program, the maximum penalty the judge can impose is 6 years. Graham was sentenced to 6 years in return for a plea of guilty, and the most important thing is that he would be imprisoned in a prison for minors. In the end, Graham avoided a very harsh punishment. If he were an adult, the punishment would have been much worse. After all this, Graham got out of prison and returned to his apartment with the 300 bitcoins he had before, which are worth $9 million today after being worth $3 million when he was imprisoned. Our story comes to an end. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.